Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I'm here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, functional nutrition and supplementation, as well as lab testing, all out of his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually all around the world. He's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting-edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. So he's worked with celebrities and athletes all around the world, and tonight is joining us to dive deep into anxiety. There's a lot of people, dealing with this every day, let alone right now. So I think it's a great topic to bring up.
Yeah, it sure is. Speaking of a lot of people, there's a lot of people. And I want to start off this is a category that's kind of gets put into the mental illness.
Yes.
And again, I think more and more, we are all getting more and more comfortable talking about it, knowing that it's not a weakness. It's not like, it's not like you're a lesser human being if you have anxiety. Right now, I honestly, if you don't have any anxiety, you're in the outside right now looking in.
You're in the minority.
Yeah, they're in the minority. And there's nothing wrong with it tonight. That's part of the reason I'm so excited really to share this information with everyone tonight, because we're all vulnerable for it, not because we are weak or anything like that, because we're creating massive imbalances. And that's what we'll go into tonight. As we go, Karen, this topic, and one of the reasons this last couple of weeks I've been thinking about this a lot is, one, I see more and more of it in clinic every single day. And it's not just with adults, and it's not just with people that have super stressful lives or going through traumatic things. It is with children. I have 6-year-olds that are in my office with anxiety. I have 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds, and I have family members, et cetera, that deal with anxiety, that it's got to the point where it has impacted and interfered with everyday life. It's even gotten to the point where, we have this pandemic going on, and that is part of it. And we'll dive into the causes of it, but part of it is like fear or the uncertainty of what's coming. And now anxiety is the number 2 comorbidity for all COVID deaths. And this should really, really be opening up our eyes for everyone that's pushing, I want to say the word agenda, pushing whatever they have that is causing other people to become uncomfortable with their own decision making, because now it is really pushing individuals to become unhealthy and maybe life risking. So, and what a comorbidity means is that for all the people that have died of COVID, all of them, the number 2 comorbidity, the number 2 symptom that they had that combined COVID with this created a morbid situation was anxiety.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer, because it is something that we definitely can manage. And that's the goal of tonight's show of just giving us more strategies, more tools, and recognizing that this too will not stop us. We have, so many good, easy, I'm going to say easy, quite frankly, easy things to apply, so then we can work on it. And I never want to downplay an individual's situation or experience with anxiety. For some people, it's an every now and then thing. And some people, as I go through the symptoms tonight, they might not know that what they experience is actually anxiety.
Yeah.
Because it looks different. We're going to go through, and you and I were talking about the different symptoms of what it looks like. And we'll go through those. We're going to start with there in just a moment. So, and then there's people that have dealt with this throughout the entire course of their life. And I want them to listen close as well, because there are some root causes. And usually this is the stuff, quite frankly, that I only dive deep into in one-on-one consults. But I think it's an important enough topic that I want to give as much as I can tonight, just like if I was sitting in a one-on-one consult with someone.
Yeah, awesome. And I love that, because often we don't talk about some of these root causes. If somebody does say they've got anxiety, there's only, a couple of things that somebody might recommend, and they're not really thinking about some of the other stuff that we're going to go into tonight. So yeah, I love that we're going to we're going to dive into some of this. Because as you said, I mean, we both know people. I've dealt with anxiety myself. We know when we dive into symptoms, I can talk about some of that, but yeah, big topic. So let's start with the symptoms. What might people be experiencing?
So these are really all over the board. So let's kind of go through these, because oftentimes we don't think that they correlate to us. So there's some subtleties, like one is a heart racing. That's very common, and that's one of the scarier ones, because you feel this one. And is why a lot of people who are having anxiety or panic attacks, if you want to call it, end up in the ER, because they think they're literally having a heart issue. So chest constriction, heart racing, tighter and tighter breath, unable to get a good breath. These are all very, very common, but that's not the only ones. There are many others. For example, you can have things like tunnel vision. You start to literally, your field of gaze closes down. This will happen for people oftentimes when they're driving, or it'll be like raining and the windshield wipers are on and they're driving during that time. And all of a sudden, too much stimulus creating a symptom where they get a tunnel vision. It's not uncommon that like their blood pressure will spike, their heart rate increases, so they feel, the heart. And then there's other subtleties like throat constriction. That's not uncommon. That goes with it. And then there's a whole nother group, Karen. For example, we talked about this one, the inability to make a decision.
Yeah.
You're just stuck. You can't make a decision. And then it starts to kind of morph into like a physical and emotional thing simultaneously. And this is real. A lot of people that are in the middle of anxiety are starting to develop this. It's very difficult for them to like make a defining decision, because there's always attached a wrong or right to that.
And these don't even have to be big decisions. Like we were talking, I've had this where I'm just trying to decide whether to go to the gym or not go to the gym. It doesn't have to be these aren't life-changing decisions that we're trying to make. It can be like a small daily decision that suddenly you just can't choose.
100%, Karen. These are not like lifetime, life deciding factors. These are little things. Should I go get gas today? Not should I go? What if I do get gas? In that cycle, that uncertainty just starts, like kind of spreading everywhere into life. So blurred vision is not uncommon. Like the inability to be able to see through your vision literally can change. Like you don't like you can't read as well anymore, etc. Being blank-minded, almost like you just can't come up with thoughts. You can't stay motivated. These are all signs that there is some kind of inability to stay still sometimes. Like the feeling that you just got to like go do something. These are all signs that could be leading to anxiety. And it's also important, I think, to understand that anxiety is more a description.
Yeah.
It is one thing. And that's why it may look and feel different for everybody. And so it's important that even though we have like diagnoses that are called anxiety and depression, you're really not a thing in the body that is like, oh, there's a test for anxiety, there's a test for depression. There's really not. It's a description of how we are feeling and how we are acting in any given moment. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's a good point to make. Okay, so these are we were talking about two aspects of anxiety before. These are some of the symptoms people are having. What's some of the causes of these?
So let's before I even go into the causes, I think it's real important, and this is the part that I want to make sure everyone understands, because oftentimes we think anxiety is just a mental thing. I want to say that most people think anxiety is just something that's in between our ears. And that's one of the reasons we think that, it must be a weakness, or I should be able to just kind of wean myself out of this, or just snap out of it. Or if I just tell you, Karen, like, just buckle down. You got this, girl, whatever. I think snap someone out. And if it was just an emotional thing, then we might be correct. Then maybe we could just like get them out of stinking thinking and move forward. But Karen, there's really in anxiety, it's really both. It has an emotional component, absolutely positively, and it also has a physical component. And I think it's real important that we go through these two things. So the emotional component, if I was to simplify it, and this is almost unfair that I do it this way, but I want us to understand, it's really a fear of the future. Or we can just say it's uncertainty. And that is also, uncertainty happens about something in the future. So it might not be, because some people, if I say it's fear of the future, they go, well, I don't have fear of the future. I'm tough. Like, I'm not afraid of anything. And let's not inhibit our ability to really see this for what it is, but that uncertainty of what's next, that fear of the future, putting ourselves in the unknown, that worry, concern, and fear, that's where that gloom and doom kind of build up in our body. So that emotion is real. That is absolutely positively part of being anxious, of having anxiety. And you'll see when we talk about things that we can do to help remedy this feeling, that we'll see that as we eliminate the uncertainty by getting a little bit more present with what we're doing, saying, and how we're acting, it helps a big time. The second part of this is the physical component. And this is the part that bums me out, that we have literally millions of people in our country worldwide who are diagnosed with anxiety, and they're only treated to try to fix something that's going on in between the ears.
Yeah.
And there is a physical component to this, and we'll dive a little bit deeper, but I'm going to lay it out for the simple part of it. It is caused by a depletion of key vitamins and minerals. These key vitamins and minerals are part of us being able to make and sustain good neurotransmitter balance. All right, that was a complicated way for me saying you get an imbalance physically of dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and norepinephrine. And these are neurotransmitters. So this physically happens. And when we get into the causes in just a little bit here, we'll dive deeper. But a big part of this, Karen, and this is where this is so important. So when I do a one-on-one consult, I'll share with them, these are the things you can do in the moment. And this is the big picture. In the big picture, almost all situations of anxiety, there is a gut balance, a gut imbalance. This is the gut-brain conversation. Specifically, your gut is where the precursors for all those neurotransmitters that I just mentioned. Dopamine, which is essentially your feel-good hormone, right? That's what we get when we eat food and we have sex. We get a little dopamine dump. Serotonin, that's the stabilizing of our mood. Serotonin also makes us happy. Those two are made, they're the beginning part of being made. They start in the gut, and then they're sent up to the brain, across the blood-brain barrier, and then they get into different parts of the brain where they can get matured and maybe even farther. Yet, if we have a gut imbalance, then unfortunately, we're not going to make a good neurotransmitters. And this is where I see the biggest problems underlying. So when I step back as a clinician and I'm trying to look for that root cause, I'm looking for, it seems like a good individual in front of me. They don't seem to have massive imbalances. Karen, there's plenty of people even listening tonight, or going to watch this on a replay or something, say, you know what? I'll be in the middle of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I will have a panic attack.
Yeah.
So in those moments, it's not in between the ears.
Yeah. Yeah. You can think I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, or just when you wake up. A lot of the time, my anxiety used to be the worst. Just as soon as I wake up, I wasn't even thinking about anything. I couldn't even pinpoint something to worry about. I was like, I don't even know what I'm worried about, but I'm filled with this sense of dread.
So 100%, and this is so important for us to understand, because if we want to get to the root cause of this and eventually fix it up, we have to understand what is really taking place. And it becomes a physical depletion of minerals that are required in the body to make those neurotransmitters. And if we don't have them, then we're really running uphill, and always going to be running uphill. So, and to give people an understanding, let's just say that stress is no doubt a contributor. All right.
Yeah.
Especially prolonged. So to simplify this, when we have anxiety, you are also stuck in fight or flight.
Yeah.
So that's a certainty. That's the sympathetic dominance that we have. You're stuck in this fight or flight. The polar opposite of that would be rest and relaxation, which is really a parasympathetic part of the nervous system. So parasympathetic, rest and digest, recover, rebuild. Beautiful. Sympathetic, or fight or flight, is go, 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 constriction, muscles binding up, tension, etc. When we are stuck in that sympathetic dominance, we have things like our adrenal glands that are dumping those hormones. A lot of those things, like the epinephrine that we just talked about, that's made in your adrenal glands. And that is, it's dumped into the system to try to regulate stress response, to regulate cortisol response. So as we're dumping that in, you're also dumping like huge quantities of vitamin C in doses. So the next thing you know, you're depleted in vitamin C. Next thing you know, you're depleted in copper. Next thing you know, you're depleted in zinc. And we start to develop these imbalances. Then we get out of balance, and it literally, you wake up one day and you're completely out of balance. You didn't do anything, and boom, your body goes, oh, I was supposed to release this neurotransmitter here just to balance your day. It's not there. And then you end up, having one of those experiences.
Yeah. And I love that we talk about some of the physical, these imbalances, some of the physical things, because there's so many things when it comes to my nutrition. We were talking about alcohol, exercise. Some of these things have such a big part. They just have such an big impact. I know me personally, and for other people that I've talked to on their anxiety. Often we do talk about mindset or kind of the mental aspects, but man, the physical aspects, especially what I'm eating or drinking, have such a big part on, especially what you're talking about this morning, like not really sure what's going on, anxiety. The biggest impact changing up my nutrition had on was that morning anxiety. That exactly what you're talking about, where I don't really know. I'm not particularly worried about one thing in particular, but just feeling anxious. So, and we don't often talk about them. And that is, as you said, linked to the gut and all those different processes.
Yeah. So let's, I want to finish one other thing with the different kind of causes here. And then we'll dive a little bit deeper, because diet is huge, like huge.
Yeah.
No surprise, right? Yeah. So when we think about the causes of like what causes a person to have these imbalances, both mental and physical, and that creates these imbalances, then our body responds in these unfavorable ways. So one is definitely the fear of the future, the uncertainty. And right now, and the reason I started off by saying, if you aren't experiencing any anxiety, like you're an outsider looking in, because there's massive uncertainty that's prolonged right now. Not a single one of us knows what 6 months is going to look like. Not before, but we had an idea. Like we had a shot at it. Now our jobs, our travel, our health, our primary things, these primary things that we have in life are being at risk, and they're being jeopardized. So there's legit concern there. So fear of the future, the depletion of minerals, consistent stress, whether it's physical, emotional, or chemical, and that's diet. We'll talk about that in just a moment. That makes a massive issue, the depletion of those. Gut health. So listen, again, if your gut is not healthy, and then there's characteristics here, I'll talk about two different cases in just a moment, but if you're gut healthy, if you don't have good health, and you've dealt with, which we've dealt with a lot in the show, things like leaky gut, diverticulitis, you've dealt with SIBO, you've dealt with Crohn's, all of these are leaving you vulnerable for not making necessarily awesome neurotransmitters. So that's another one. And then the last one, which we can't leave out tonight, we're not going to do too much on it, but at least to address it, you can have anxiety caused by depression. And when we get into our, the suggestions or recommendations we have for supplements, if you have a combination of like depression and anxiety, and again, there's no weakness here. It just is what it is. Again, that's an imbalance in the body. If that happens, there's a couple of specific type of supplements that will benefit you even more. So those are kind of the root causes. So with that, let's dive a little bit into like the diet part of this, the nutrition. There's no doubt there's some consistencies here. And the biggest thing is what foods are causing the biggest depletions. And that's how we got to think. So I'll back up and say this. These are not the things that you try to do in the middle of an anxiety attack.
No. Yes.
That time is past. We'll talk about that, what we do in the acute strategy, right? So just for a side note here, especially if you're trying to help somebody, this is, we step back, you're having an hour consultation with me, we're talking about the big picture, and we have to look at the diet. In the diet, what are the things that you're bringing into your body that are depleting you of your core trace minerals, and vitamins? Well, let's just, we know this, but it's worth repeating because they're so consistent in my office, especially certain age groups. But sugar is probably, I think it's on top of the list.
Okay. Yeah.
someone who is having carbohydrates and sugar, we know that those carbohydrates, those sugar will deplete the body of its nutrients twice as fast, especially things like your B vitamins and your minerals. It's going to pull them out nonstop. So alcohol falls right in that category.
It really does. Yeah. And I think, a lot of people who have anxiety can notice, maybe even if they're not noticing the sugar and things as much, can notice that alcohol makes a difference. Alcohol really doesn't help. Helps your anxiety at the moment. Sure as hell doesn't help the next day.
Yeah, and that's a catch-22 right there. Because I know some people who drink to take the edge off of it, and then wake up the next day and then are dealing with it over and over again. And this is very common for me clinically to watch this pattern. That they almost I've had people literally say to me, "Well, I have to drink, otherwise I'll be too anxious during the night. I won't be able to rest." And it's real, but to have different tools, because unfortunately that tool is literally just driving it deeper. And I would say the same thing. People might want to give me a little feedback on this or fight back on this, but I'm telling you right now, I know that people say that marijuana is good for anxiety. It is not. It'll help you in the moment, but it will only it'll dig it deeper. So marijuana is commonly used for clinically. I've dealt with this for so long. Everyone who says it is not working in a clinic. It's not working with people who have anxiety. And if you're using marijuana as a source of getting rid of your anxiety, I get it works in the moment and it actually makes it worse. How do I know? Because you can't get off of marijuana because you have too much anxiety. So just trust me when I say that. And I say that more importantly because it's become somehow an acceptable therapy, treatment, or protocol for teenagers. And it's not. So send me hate mail if you have to, but I say that because I love and care for all these peeps. And happening, I know the other end of this. I know the struggle that it's going to take every time they use that as a resource to kind of like get out of it.
I think it's a good point to make. And actually Dr. Daniel Amen, who does brain scans, has been talking about marijuana a little bit. Same thing as you're saying, that it's not helpful. The brain scans look terrible after use of marijuana, and that people are experiencing more depression, more anxiety, more some of the disorders that he works with in that range. So it is, as you said, there's a lot of people that are kind of talking about the positives, but I think there's there seems to be a lot of other downsides. Yeah,
it's interesting you brought up, it was Dr. Amen, is that it?
Yeah.
My wife just shared me a recent podcast by him, and it confirmed a lot of what I thought and what I'd kind of been reading and seeing about it. So again, I'm not supportive when people ask me, do I think CBD, and we'll get into the protocols. There's some really good things to do for that, but that's not. All right, so
alcohol's not helping, sugar's not helping, marijuana's not helping. And with the food, even although sugar, I noticed that one take out, but even the cleaner I get, the more I'm able to deal with stress and get less anxiety, really.
That's a great point. And that's why when we talk about like the stepping back and be like, well, how do I manage this? Like, I know this is going on in my life. Like, how do I become like, how do I become like the master of this? How do I become superhuman and say, this can happen, but I got this covered as well. And we do that by getting cleaner and cleaner. So there are different, subtleties of don't getting too full, of making, getting gluten out of your life, watching the caffeine intake. These are all super triggers. I kind of wish I had my wife with here because she loves caffeine, but it's her absolute vice. So if she stays off.
Ellie, me too.
And that self-awareness is a huge part of the success of this. And I'm going to go a little farther with that. So there's, of course, diet is going to be huge. So we're going, the primary things is we really got to do an awareness about sugar, caffeine, alcohol, and then really, Karen, anything that's not from God's garden.
Yeah.
Your body only has a certain amount of energy, only has a certain amount of resources, vitamins, minerals, nutrients. And every time you bring something in that is not a vitamin, mineral, nutrient, your body actually has to give up some of yours to deal with the ones that are not. And that way you can give it a ride out of your body. But so there's no free pass. So every time we eat processed food, we eat that bag of chips, we go to Chick-fil-A, we eat McDonald's, we have the French fries, they're no big deal. But every single time we do pay for it. we pay for it with vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that are either tipping the scales in our favor or not so much.
Mhm.
So the diet, I think, is not rocket science, yet the awareness of the role it plays. So I want to share something with you about, oh man, this is across the board. I want to talk about kids for a moment. Kids and anxiety. So for those of you out there that have children, or maybe you were this kid when you were young, there's a couple characteristics that are crystal clear to me when I see kids for anxiety. In their history, this is what I always find out. One, they're addicted to the sugar and the carbohydrates, and they pretty much tell their parents what they will and will not eat. And then second is there's always a history of antibiotics. Yeah, and that's destroying the gut flora, and then the obviously the sugar and the carbs are depleting them. So I have literally 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds that are completely depleted, and none of those. So this is all physical, Karen. This was trying to deal with a 15-year-old girl trying to keep up with Instagram and social media in all worldly, crazy pressures.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, so all of that is super, super real. So diet wise, absolutely, it is important that we get and stay cleaner. And knowing your own body is really, really important. There's going to be a constant theme through this. So let's now shift this into talking about environment.
Yes.
Huge. And this is going to be part of strategies. This will be two-part here: the awareness of the environment and triggers that are causing things. We don't even know. Like, a lot of people aren't even aware that these things are happening. Yet they're requiring our resources, and they're creating stress within the body. And then this will also be part of when we talk about what do we do in the moment. So when I say environment, there's a couple things. One, there's a lot of people out there. There's a whole group of people that are very, very sensitive to smells.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So you might be in a spin class or a yoga class, and someone comes in and they got a strong scent, and boom. And so remember, this is going to go right to the olfactory nerve, which is a cranial nerve. And so you're going to have a massive response. You're going to have a neurotransmitter response to different scents. So in the event that you, like, for some people, they'll literally be walking through a grocery store, walk out, I don't know if grocery stores, do the grocery stores have perfume aisles? Probably not.
I don't think so. But anyway, a department store.
Or they may walk down an aisle that has all the cleaners, like the Tide.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very, and it's such stimulus to their body that it has nothing to do with how they're thinking, but it's enough to trigger a response in their body that trigger creates this fight or flight situation, this sympathetic dominance, and boom, we mimic everything that we would think that would cause from an emotional stress. But we have these physical things, these chemicals coming into the body that absolutely positively can trigger it. Now, I've had women that have come in and have anxiety, and this is 24/7, and I just happen, this, and again, not because I've been real smart, but sometimes I'm just trying to listen and observe. I remember very clearly a couple of years back, I had a lady sitting in front of me, and one of the things I remembered about her, how strong her perfume was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to deal with her with anxiety and everything, and then I remember saying, listen, do you smell your perfume? She's like, yeah, a little bit. I'm like, it's really strong. And this is a very hard conversation. I asked her to not use it for a couple of weeks. I didn't know what was in it. Most of them were made of, constant chemicals and all that kind of stuff. And if it didn't change the game.
Wow.
She was putting on her own body every single day, was triggering enough in her body. The reason I share that is because sometimes it's the scents we have, the smells. So we have to pay really close attention to all the stimulus that we're taking in. So if you're at home taking notes, or you're thinking about yourself and anxiety and stuff, I want you to think of the key senses. I want you to think about lighting, number one. So, and lighting includes our TV, computer, and our phones. Yeah. No doubt about it, Karen. These are triggers.
Yeah. Oh, especially our phone. I mean, hell, we spend far too much time on our phone. I'm guilty of spending far too much time on my phone. I think a lot of people are.
And what we don't often recognize is that these these computers, these phones, you know, they can't see right now, but I got these like two big lights right here. I've got this big old computer sitting here, and I got my phone over here. And this is all coming at me. My body, your body has to defend this.
Yeah.
It takes energy to do this. So again, this isn't a thing here, but this is, and I think last week we talked about the energy cycle. This is how much energy you have in a certain day. If you gotta like take this much energy just to deal with all the energy coming at you, electrical stimulus, you don't have much left over. Remember, anything coming into the body, you have to give up key vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, including sight, which is, you know, the lights and everything, sound, we still have to have a response to that, and then of course smell. So in these scenarios, if you're always at a computer and you get all this energy bombarding, that by itself is a form of stress.
Yeah, sure.
And in today's environment, when we have so many different avenues where things are coming at us, pay a little closer attention to these. So, you know, typically when I'm done here, all this gets shut off, man. I shut it down. I go outside and just try to get it'll be dark by the time I'm done, but just to try to regulate before I try to get to bed. And often it's not easy for me to sleep after the show. Because just, you know, I'm a little geared up anyways, but it's mostly the electrical, you know, input the body's taking on.
Yeah, definitely. And I love talking about these things because they are also things that we can control. You know, sometimes we can't control what stresses are coming into our lives, or like the things that we're talking about, you know, that's going on in the world, but we can try to have more awareness around some of these physical things that we can change. So at least if that's on point, potentially we're getting less and less of these anxiety symptoms.
So we'll go through a couple more things. And if you have questions, I want to make this an open forum as well. So if you guys have questions, you're here on Zoom, you can put them right in the chat, and then we'll get them in just a moment, Karen. And then if you're on Facebook and you have questions, start sending them in, because I still am going to cover some remedies here too as well, which is a huge part of this. So so being aware of those different things, because that actually becomes part of the cure in the strategies of the acute strategies. We'll go into that in just a moment here. So diet, we talked about a little bit, environment, recognizing it, you know, and there's certain situations where there's just too much input.
Yeah.
You know, I practice acupuncture, I practice traditional Chinese medicine. And a lot of times people say, well, what will it do for me? And I tell them, it'll just help you swing the pendulum. Everything you have is on go. It's go all the time. And that's sympathetic dominance. That's in traditional Chinese medicine, we call that yang. It's fire. It's go. And it's fine to go there as long as your pendulum can swing back to the other side. And we can get to choose. Well, here we go. I'm going to go work hard. I'm going to go entertain. I'm going to go have friends and exercise, and we go all that way. But we need to be able to swing that pendulum back there. So for some people, remedies would be like an acupuncture session. It was beautiful. I can just do like a yin session. To one of your points, sometimes when you are stuck in sympathetic dominance, exercise and this out so you can't stay there. It takes a lot of energy to be there. So go getting some vigorous exercise, like a hardcore run, you know, HIIT exercise, a spin class, and burning that out. We got to be careful with that, you know, making sure that we don't have an underlying adrenal issue, because those aren't far behind. If we're not coping with and managing anxiety properly, like it's a slippery slope. I can expect clinically that somewhere down the line that we're going to run into an adrenal issue as well, because ultimately we're staying too much stimulus, too much going on. We're depleting vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, kind of giving up. And our adrenal glands then take over. When we've given everything up, the adrenal glands take over, suffice with, you know, cortisol, which is another hormone. It tries to kind of balance the game there, and eventually it wears out as well. So environment, absolutely huge. And, you know, and then the other things that I think are often just I think we oversimplify them and we don't really give them much credit, but our triggers. So this is important, and this is individual. So we all have people. We all have things on Facebook. We all have slogans. We all have bumper stickers. We all have things that when we
Yes, we do.
Yes. And I think generally we're all becoming a little more sensitive to those things.
Yeah, it's a good call.
and it's unneeded. It really is unneeded. And the reason I bring it up is because we seem to also, I'm just making a general observation. It seems like people are having more and more triggers to more and more things, literally like bumper stickers and flags and jackets and whatever. It just seems that there's just more things that trigger us now.
We're just a little bit angrier in general.
It's more intense. So again, it is a gut check. We have to know our triggers.
Yeah.
And that literally can part of your environment. When I talk about light, like, we got to shut things down. And when we talk about noise, got to get out of environments that are very noisy. When I talk about smells, like you got to clean it up. Most smells that we have nowadays are artificial, and which means they're chemicals. And although we can't see them, it doesn't mean that they're not impacting us, right? So we can't see, but it still impacts us. So we want to be very, very mindful of these things. And sometimes it's people. It's the energy of another individual. And it does not make them wrong, does not make them a bad person. But if you have a group of people, a work environment, something that is triggering you. Now, this can't be confused with, I can't handle that situation. All right, let me explain it. What that means is, listen, if we keep getting depleted, you continue to be able to handle less and less. And that is not the goal of people watching this show. Definitely not, right?
Definitely not.
To increase our capacity. And if the world starts to get wonkier, we say, bring it. Because we will continue to develop strategies to work on being superhuman. And as humans, just in general, we have superhuman powers as long as we are letting our body do the best that it can. So I still full-heartedly believe that. So just eliminating those other things is not the key. The key is that we get stronger and stronger. And in the short term, if you just have situations that just do not serve you, you gotta be mindful to it. We just call it a timeout, not a forever thing, but at least a timeout long enough where we can kind of get balanced out a little bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, since we're still on environment for the moment, we've got a question here about how does mold affect anxiety?
Huge, big time. And it's biggest.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, it's going to be on the gut, because when that mold takes over, inevitably it's going to be in the intestinal lining. That's most likely that it's going to be there. Mold, candida, any form of yeast that we have, all of those are going to play a huge role, because they're going to inhibit our ability to really nurture and make those neurotransmitters, and then send them and get able to cross the blood-brain barrier with the other vitamins and nutrients that are needed. And those are things like dopamine, and serotonin, and GABA, and norepinephrine. All of those start in the gut. So if we got mold there, we're not going to make that. So we'll see a lot of people that one of the ways that we discover that they have mold is because of this ongoing, all these symptoms we talk about. They get all these random things going on, and they can't really figure it out. And then we discovered that their underlying issue with mold or a fungus or something like that. So great question. And again, great awareness, because again, anxiety is a symptom.
Yeah.
It's a description of other things. It is not a primary cause. It's not a root cause of anything.
Yeah.
It's taking place because of all these other things we got going on.
Yeah, for sure. What about brain injury? Can a brain injury affect anxiety?
Yes, but it would be a little bit more indirect. And the indirectness would be depending on what it had. Like if you had a brain injury and it impacted the pineal gland, absolutely. Things like serotonin and dopamine, that's where a lot of those are really they're going to be made finally there. So if we have an impact on that, or if we have an impact on the hypothalamus gland or the pituitary gland, if they're damaged, absolutely. Other than that, typically the imbalance, again, is what's going to cause the anxiety. Brain damage tells us we have imbalance. Yet everything I'm talking about tonight is still, like, the brain damage most likely would not be the root cause. I would look at the things we're talking about tonight, like things like the gut health, the things like the uncertainty of the future and stuff like that. But typically by itself, brain damage is not. And I say that because brain damage is kind of a loose phrase. It could be a lot of different things, but I'll see concussions and I'll see it, in people that literally have brain damage, car accidents, whiplashes, etc. Through some traumatic and non-traumatic. Anxiety is not the primary thing that goes with that, but it can be developed down the road as a result of having imbalances in other areas.
Yeah, awesome. We've got another question here. Everybody's anatomy is different. How can one find out what elements, what nutrition they are lacking in the body?
Yeah, so that is an awesome question. And you're absolutely right. We are all different. And there are certain tests, and I can test everything yet. Before I do that, I want to, I think the most important message I can share with you tonight is before you start testing everything, make sure you have everything in line.
Yeah.
Karen, I love testing.
Yeah, so do I.
I'm going tomorrow morning. My wife and I are going to get our labs done again. I take my labs all the time. I'm a huge fan of it. And at the same time, I probably talk people as many people out of testing as I do into testing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons being, we first have to have our ducks in order.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have a good diet, don't do your lab work. Because
issues.
Yes, because we know there's going to be imbalance. If you're really, really, really doing not so good, like you feel like your hormones are all out of whack, don't go test your hormones because we know they're out of whack. But get everything in line and then test. So you can say, well, I have a good diet, therefore, then my other change, if I have a depletion or something like that, then it makes more sense. So there are different tests out there. There is something called, which is one of the gold standards for like yeast and mold and bacteria, but you can do a neurotransmitter test. It's a simple test. We run it for mold and yeast, organic acid test. Really letting us know different things about dopamine, especially the imbalances you may or may not have there, mitochondria. There's a vitamin nutrient test. I don't run it too frequently anymore just because it takes a long time to get back, and people are never patient with that. It literally takes 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So take a test, you kind of want results fast, but there is a micronutrient test. Very, very effective. They test a little bit different. That is the best nutrient testing out there. This is a company down in Houston that does it. We can run that lab. I run it on myself, which is cool. I'm patient with it. And there are some more things coming out. So, within the next week or two, I think I'll be able to bring in some cool things about being able to test at home, things like your essential fatty acids and vitamin D levels, things that are really cool. So just hang tight with there. I get some really cool things coming.
Awesome.
Yeah, and be real simple at-home functional tests. You do it at home and send it in, so you don't have to go to a lab and stuff like that. So some pretty cool stuff. So to answer that question directly, how does an individual know? Even when we take tests, that was a very good question, saying everybody is a little bit different. They're based on a lot of what they call normals. So that's where it is important that you get with someone that really, you want to do get with someone that does functional medicine, functional nutrition, that we are looking at functional normals, functional optimal, which is a whole different category than just you fall into categories, everything is, kind of the normal. And we look at different parameters. So for example, if I look at someone's lab work and we don't do a zinc test per se, and I see something, there's a test called, one of the lab markers is alkaline phosphatase. The level of alkaline phosphatase gives me a good indication of whether or not you're holding your zinc. So there's a lot of other ways that we can look at things. But again, testing is awesome. But the way I encourage it is typically use it after you've done, you're in line, and then you can have an expectation of where's your body really, because sometimes the body gets blamed.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a bad liver. No, it's not a bad liver. It's an awesome liver that's been crap for years. So that's where we got to be a little gentle. And I will also say that some people out there literally do better when they see their labs.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about that. So if people do want to do their labs with you, how do they get in touch? Just
reach out to the office. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can reach out to the office and call or email. Maybe you put a link in there. In fact, because we're going to need a link. I should have told you this earlier when we were off air, but you're going to need a link to the office because I want to give people an access some of the herbs that I'm going to talk about today, they're going to need a code from me. And
Okay.
code. And if they email my office and in the heading, they put anxiety show. I'm making this now. They put anxiety show. We will give you a link because I have to have one-on-one. We have to have a connection with you. And if you email me, this will work. We will send you a link that you will have full access to all the herbs I'm going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
And then, of course, my disclaimer tonight is also that I'm not giving you any strategies or any things to treat you personally, right? I'm not acting as your doctor here tonight. I'm giving you the best opportunity or best information I can so you can level up your health and become as close to superhuman as possible. All right. So where are we headed next? Is it time to
let's talk about some things we can do? Yeah, both in the moment. We were talking about making sure that there's kind of some in the moment strategies, and then obviously we've talked about some of the other longer term strategies we do.
This is where the rubber hits the road. Let's dive into this a little bit because this is kind of like, what are we going to do here? All right. So I want to speak first to the acute situation. This is, you have anxiety, you know someone that has anxiety. And what are we going to do? In the moment, hear me out, folks. In the moment, we can't do this mentally. It has to be physically. So in the moment of a panic attack, and you can try some mental things, but so meaning this, telling someone to relax and calm down is an idea. So what happens is, this is really, really important because everyone here, again, has tried to help somebody or they've had someone try to help them. And this is a conversation that's really important for them to hear this. When we are in that fight or flight and we're in anxiety, we have a little bit of fear of that future, the uncertainty. And someone says, do this. If we can't do it, we've literally just added fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
In that person that you are in the middle of an anxious moment, you're having anxiety, and someone's telling you to take a deep breath and exhale slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to listen at all. You want to kind of punch them.
Yes, not in the moment. So the most help we can be is to have the tools on hand, these safe herbs that will affect the physiology quickly. And that the number one, especially for anxiety, the quickest acting, let's make change right here, right now, is something called kava.
Yes, amazing.
Phenomenal herb. We use it clinically. I can't tell you how many ER visits this has saved.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And so clinically, it is not something you have to take every day, but you want to get used to how to take it, how to kind of, you need to have it on you. If you watch this tonight, and you are that person that has anxiety or a friend or family member has it, and then in that moment, you're like, well, maybe I should call Dr. Bart and get some kava. Well, you
that's going to take way too long.
So this is strategy to prepare for the moment that we know. So listen, it's kind of like bring it on. I got the tools to manage this. And kava can be used in the moment. The beauty is it kicks in about 15 minutes, wears off, relatively slow declining about 2 hours, and often will be the defining change in that moment. So kava, again, it's a water-based herb. It is not, it's not a synthetic. It's really, it's a safe one. And you can use a fair amount here. I've used 5 or 6 at a time. Typically, I find 2 to 3 is a magic dose when someone's having like a moment. So Kava Forte, that's what it's really called, Kava Forte, absolutely phenomenal. Now, coupled with that is something that my second go-to here is ashwagandha.
Yeah.
Specifically, so I use ashwagandha, a couple different formulas that we use. We have one called ashwagandha complex, but in this situation, I use one called ashwagandha forte. The big difference, so if you guys are out there and you have either one, they're both phenomenal. I use the ashwagandha complex usually when I'm doing it in relationship to also helping you with your adrenals. So if you have that one at home, be like, why did you give me that one? The other one is stronger, but it doesn't address the adrenals as much. But I'm looking for the strength of ashwagandha in an anxiety situation, anxiety case. And this one's phenomenal. And this is the one that helps with our hypothalamus gland. And Karen, we might run a minute late tonight because there's something I want to share about women specifically in their cycle. So okay. If you got to go in a little bit, I get it. It'll just be a minute or two late tonight because I think we're running close anyways. Maybe I can do it. So ashwagandha forte, absolutely super, super effective. 2 of them, and use this, especially if you're like in one of those moments. If you notice it in the morning, 2 of them, 3 times a day.
Okay.
And you're going to use that the course of the day. And you're going to go so far, like I have 0 anxiety right now. I am literally chilled out. I am good to go. Not if I'm waiting, how bad is it going to get before I try it? No, none of that. If you're cold, put a shirt on. Like this, no, wow, I get frostbite. No. Address it. Give yourself the opportunity to do it, because the other challenge with anxiety, especially getting all the way to that point of panic attacks, in the event you get there, unfortunately, it can create a trigger where you get there sooner the next time. Yeah. So we do everything we can to avoid that really sensitive moment where there's kind of a heightened experience here. All right, so those 2 herbs are my favorite. There's 2 others I'm going to talk about, but I want to back up a step and go to minerals. I've been talking about the whole time depletions. Minerals. The number one I use is something called Min-Chex.
Yeah.
Min-Chex, we've talked about it in the show before, phenomenal for hormones, phenomenal for anxiety. And one of the reasons being is that it is a combination product of 2 products that Standard Process makes. One called Min-Tran, which kind of is abbreviated mineral tranquilizer. They're chill out. They help us swing the pendulum back into, they give the tools for the parasympathetic activity to take place. That's the rest, digest, helps us sleep. It helps, whether it be the night terrors, helps with the anxiety, helps with that angst that builds up in the body, helps us sleep a little bit deeper, that deep sleep that people need at night. All of that stuff, Min-Tran, phenomenal. So Min-Chex is half Min-Tran, and the other half is Orchex. And Orchex technically comes from orchids, which is basically bull balls. So yes, and they use this, it's a desiccated material to help those minerals cross up into the blood-brain barrier and have a calming effect. So it speeds up the process, especially if you have an unhealthy gut. And as a clinician, I already know people have, but I need to get those minerals up into, cross the blood-brain barrier. And it's one of the reasons I love this company Standard Process so much, is that they have these very, very brilliant products. So Min-Chex is literally a phenomenal tool that's giving us the foundation stuff that we need in order to get those minerals back up into the brain so we can utilize serotonin, dopamine, etc. So Min-Chex, but this is going to be a daily thing. It will help us in the acute phase, but every single day, if that's you, if you fall into this category, then 3 of them twice a day, then you're a Min-Chex person. And those minerals are phenomenal for all, along with all the dietary things. So there's 2 others, Karen, that I want to at least put out here. We mentioned depression a little bit. If you are experiencing a little bit of both, and it's very common, because you're getting a neurotransmitter imbalance at this point. And oftentimes the depression could come first, could come second, doesn't really matter. But if you have both, there's another herb we use, and we can use it in that acute phase and daily, and it's called Leviton.
Okay.
And again, unfortunately, Min-Chex you can find, like you can just put the link to the one place, the website. Yeah. All these other
one.
If you are already signed up and you have our patient code and you're on Patient Direct, awesome. Patient Direct is a direct patient to doctor website portal that we can give you. But you have to have some establishment that you have contacted us directly, but you need a code for that. We give you a code, and then we approve it, and then you get to go on, and then you have full access to Standard Process. But these herbs, this is the way that if you're going to order them, you can call us, and obviously we'll send them to you. But if you want to be able to order it, that's probably the easier way to go here. So it's Leviton, and then there's one other. It's really good. Doesn't work as fast, but this is really good medicinally over the long haul. It's called Valerian root.
Yes.
People have known Valerian root for literally, like Valerian root's been around for years. People literally chew on the root and chill out. Personally, I found that Valerian works quite fast and quite well, especially if it's like a buildup of like angst through the course of the day and I need to chill out for the nighttime. So that's very, very effective there. And one of the things about Valerian root is one of the few things that has been researched in helping us effectively and naturally build up more serotonin. So the longer you take Valerian root, the more effective it becomes. So super, super. So those, let's just kind of review those. Min-Chex, restore the minerals, cross the blood-brain barrier, literally fixing things. Kava, number one. You can use it in the acute phase, 2, 3, 4, you figure out what you need to use. Oftentimes, if you're staying in a stressful situation, you're going through something, you're going through, I don't know, a lawsuit, or you're going through a stressful job situation, you're moving, that's a stressful situation. Or you just find yourself, absorbed by social media and getting triggered all day. I don't know. Have a couple a day. Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is something that probably over this course year has probably been the most utilized herb that I've used in the last 18 months in my practice.
Yeah, wow.
I have people take it regularly. It's very safe and very gentle, super good in hormones, balancing the adrenal glands, etc. So Kava, Ashwagandha, Minchex, Valerian root, and Leviton. That is a very, very well stocked like toolbox. And you may not last two, Leviton and Valerian, but the other three, have them in your toolbox. And if you do, and one of these issues arises, you'll have the tools in the immediate moment. So with that being said, if you're going to help someone, I want to cast a couple, not spells on you, but I want to share with you a couple ways that you can effectively communicate with others that will be helpful and not detrimental. So the other day, Karen, I had, and this is not an exaggeration, this is real. I had a mom come in my office, and God bless her. She came in her office with her, I think she's about 11, I think. I get them all mixed up. I think she's about 11 years old. And while they came into the office, the girl already could tell she was nervous, okay? And she was for anxiety. She was going to see me for chiropractic. They understood someone told them about just getting an adjustment, helped relieve the tension in the body. Phenomenal for anxiety, just getting your nervous system to swing the pendulum. So that is a phenomenal thing. And then we were also going to do some acupuncture. On her way through the door, as we were meeting each other, Mom leaned in and said, "Are you okay?" Leaned in again and said, "Are you scared?" Well, that was the third thing she said. She said, "Are you having anxiety?" She asked her these questions.
Yeah.
Having anxiety. The last one she said, "Are you scared?" And I said, "Oh," and I had to stop her. I literally saw the poor little girl like developing them all. So the words we use are so powerful. Remember, they already have fear of the future, the uncertainty. The words you put in there, they're going to answer them, and the answer is going to be yes, yes, yes. So if you want to help someone, trust me when I say this, less is more. Less is more. We know that there's a fear of the future. There's an uncertainty of the future. So if we could go out to the future and make the future look just a little bit better, we're going to be helping them. And how can we do that? And it's these words. So this is all you need to say to those people. This will pass.
Yeah.
This will pass. Give it some time. This too will pass. Because what their brain will do is they'll say, I can agree with that. And I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Tell them, take a breath, do this, that, or the other. Then all of a sudden, if they can't do it, we've now
Too hard. Yeah.
So, and then now if it's yourself, get in the habit when you notice a little bit of it and say, all right, this will pass. And in a moment, I want you to pull up a chart because I want women to be really aware of something. And I know we're going to run a second late tonight. And then the other part is the other words you can use for them is you just tell them, you got this.
Yeah, I like that one.
Every one of us, when we're told those simple words, you got this, it does give us some.
We like it. It's good. Yeah. Just feels good.
And we can believe it.
Yeah.
We got this. Because again, you didn't ask me to do anything. I'm not asking anyone to do anything. So you can say these words to yourself, or you can say these words to the person you're trying to help. And then you hold the space. There's one of the things why my wife is so wonderful at. In these moments, she always just talks about holding the space. Don't try to do too much with it. Just hold it. Let that individual be. Let them experience. Let them emote. Let them do their thing. And be there so sturdy, so rock solid that they feel better just being in your presence.
Yeah.
So
yeah, which can be hard. Some people, once somebody's anxious, they get anxious back almost, like it just ends up. But if you can hold that calm, kind of almost what you're saying. Yeah.
If we really want to be effective, we really want to be serving, we got to hunker down. Maybe they're taking kava, you take some kava too. So you can
Yeah, everyone takes cover. Totally. Just really quickly on the supplements, what if you're taking other, got a question here about antidepressants or taking other SSRIs or antidepressant medication? Do they interact with any of the herbs that we're talking about tonight?
Kind of compete with it. So antidepressants and some of the SSRIs a little bit different. Let's just say, for example, Xanax. Xanax, in theory, its job is to get up into the brain, cross the blood-brain barrier, and promote a little bit of a dopamine push. So the probably the best answer is make sure that and about your medications, you always got to check with your doctor on that. We are a prescribing doctor on that. Most of them will not interact. Yet, I will also encourage you, because I don't know all the different medications. It's real simple to look up. You can look at drug medication, like herbal interactions with it. And there's really good resources, literally on like WebMD. So if you're taking Xanax, you're taking, whatever, maybe Zoloft or something like that, look it up and look for herbal interactions. And then if it's on there, cross that one off the list, because you don't want it to have an interaction. My experience is that most of the time, these herbs are not going to interfere with them and like make anything worse. They're just going to help your body function better. And that's what's really cool about it. So they're not necessarily going to, can an argument be made, could it block out the impact of the antidepressant? That would be something that it could, but the good news is that it's also helping your body function better. So again, make sure you check with your prescribing doctor on that, and make sure you're checking your drug interaction with the herb. So, I've seen people do both. I've seen people use them without me telling them to or not to do it. They didn't tell me they were on medications and they were using them anyways. And that actually happens a lot, Karen.
Yeah.
People don't want to put it on their forms. And I try to create an inviting environment, but they won't put the fact that they're on Xanax. They won't put the fact that they're on Zoloft on there. So I don't know. And I've given things without knowing. And everything has been just fine. So is that cool? Is that any other questions there?
No, that's the question. You want to touch on hormones quickly?
Yeah, so I want to go real quickly, and this for women to just pay attention to this, and for everyone else that are around women who may be having some imbalances on occasion. So I want to pull up a chart right now, and just a reminder, and many of you, maybe you've never.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe you've seen this chart before in your life, maybe you've seen it, but I want you to look at the first line that goes high. So it's like the lighter blue, it's the estrogen. So right in that moment, we see the higher, that one right there, Karen's pointing to. That one goes up. So about midway through your cycle, let's say you have a 28-day cycle. And this is why it's important that you semi-track your cycle. Right around day 14, your estrogen drops and your progesterone starts to increase. And that's the way it's supposed to work. So this is a very vulnerable situation right here for you to have a hormone imbalance and to develop symptoms of anxiety. So, and the reason I want people to, or women especially, to understand this is that this is one of those situations where you might be able to say, this too will pass. If we know we're in the middle of transition where you are with your hormones, often what will happen, hon, is that this estrogen might not drop. It may not drop until day 18, and you end up in more of an estrogen dominant situation. The progesterone doesn't start to rise, and you have estrogen dominance, and that can provoke this overwhelming hormonal imbalance, and literally fear, doom, massive thoughts of like something's wrong with me. And I'm not even joking when I say this, but people say, I think I have something in my head. There must be something wrong. I got to go get checked out. There's another part a little bit later in the cycle, you see down around day 21. Here, we should have a pretty big gap where you should have progesterone leading the way, spiking your progesterone, and you start to get a little bit of a surge of estrogen kind of coming back up. We often will see this completely out of whack, a flat line on progesterone and another spike in estrogen. And this too will create that moment. So just knowing that there's two really vulnerable, and that's leading up to your period. So the week before, if your hormones are out of balance, know that there's a good chance the imbalance is going to be an estrogen spike. And that imbalance can, everything we're talking about with this anxiety, Karen, it's one of those ones you could be just waking up with. You have no idea.
Yeah.
You are in your cycle. This could be what you're looking at right now is like an ideal, but nobody's is ideal.
Yes, unlikely.
These all the time. They're like long saliva tests, and we can test them. You literally do a vial of spit every third day, and I get a just like this, exactly what your graph looks like. I stopped doing it because one, you had to you spit in your vials for like 14 days straight, and everyone messed that up. But they never come out balanced. But we use all these other things we've talked about, these symptoms, the diet, the getting good sleep, etc. And sleep will be critical for all hormones. I know we've discussed it a lot, but I wanted to at least show this graph because there's going to be two significant times, right in the middle of really the month and right before, as you're building up to you possibly getting your period, of hormone imbalances that could be seriously provoking these anxiety type things. Now, guys, you obviously don't have this different cycle, and your hormones don't swing like this. So we don't necessarily have to have a chart for you. All right, awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no worries. Awesome. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of stuff. Should we move on to our last question?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's last question. I know we covered a lot. I hope that wasn't too crazy and chaotic for people, but I
think it was awesome. I mean, well, everyone can let us know, but I mean, I think you guys can let us know in the chat. But I think there was so many good things that we needed to cover. As we said in the beginning, this is like a big topic, right? You're probably in the minority if you're not dealing with some sort of anxiety, especially at the moment, or haven't in the past. And these are some great strategies. I mean, some of this stuff has really helped me. I know with my own journey, I have my order of kava coming because I haven't even tried that yet. So I'm excited to try it. But no, I think all of it needs to be said, right? And we need these strategies to help people as well. So valuable because people don't know what to do. They don't know what to do and they just freak out if somebody else is freaking out.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so just, and do your thing, spread it out, share this out as much as you can. This is a massive, massive topic. And these are really significant home run type of things that we can do. So yeah, let's get to our last question.
Yeah. So out of all the things we've talked about, what's going to be the one action that we want our listeners to take to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman?
Easy one tonight is prepare to win. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Prepare to win. So that's what we got to be thinking about the future. And when it takes so much stress and angst out of this future. So prepare to win, and whether it be having your supplements, changing up your diet, getting a good night's sleep, know that you got this covered. And it's literally a bring it on. I got this. I'm superhuman. I'll take on what has to offer me, and I'm going to continue to succeed. So prepare to win.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with us. And we'll see you next week, same time, same place, for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
Yeah, once again, appreciate everyone being here. Keep doing your thing. Keep sharing it out, spreading love. And of course, deliberate action for mind, your body, overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.